Good evening, guys. It's October 24th, Tuesday. It's about 4 o'clock Pacific time. Hope you guys are all doing well. The markets were good, positive, and strong today. The NASDAQ, as you can see, was up almost about 1%, 121 points. It's forming a good move back up, but I'm still hesitant on this market, so I'm not taking any long, large positions. This is where it seems to have turned around. It went below. So this is a lower high, lower low. So this was a low as of August. This was a low as of September. This was the low as of October. So technically, it should go up a little bit and then should come down a little bit more is my perspective, but we will have to wait and see. Not really sure it's going to end up one way or the other. The S&P 500 also did well today, almost about 30 points, about 7/10%, recovering nicely from the head and shoulders pattern. So you can literally as good as ignore it for most parts. I'm going to get rid of that head and shoulders. It's still valid. It's just that that seems to be where this turnaround has happened. Now it's hit a new low. So the new pattern looks more like a U pattern here. Again, strong movement, not sure where it will end up in the next couple of days. So I'm just watchful. I'm not taking any swing trade long positions. Dow was the weakest of the three, but still ended up on a good note, up 204 points, about 6.62%. One of the companies that showed up surprisingly on the radar for me was Medpace. Medpace is a healthcare company, and we're going to see a little bit about what it does and why it showed up on the radar with our five-step process. Almost always, as you know, Medpace, to give you content, they provide clinical development solutions to biotech companies. So we start with the financials, about almost $7 billion company, 6.9 billion, 7 billion, I would say even. Let's go first to the revenue on an annualized basis. The company seems to have grown from roughly about 400 million in 2016. 7 years later, 1.6 billion, so almost 3 times after the growth of about, which was slowed down in 2017, a phenomenal growth year in 2018. And then since then, it's been a little bit up and down, so not consistent performance, but the last 2 years have been good. And it's on track to do another 20% or so in this year. So trailing 12 months is 1.78 billion, should roughly hit about 1.8 or so, doing roughly about 60% margins. That's pretty good. And then net margins roughly in about the 5% to 5.5% range. So profitable company. Now let's look at where the valuation is. So for a 1.6 billion company doing about 8 is not bad at all. Growing at about 27, 30%, that's not bad at all. It's actually a good valuation. In terms of their balance sheet, they seem to have about $1.6 billion in cash, rounded down actually, down about, so they used up quite a bit of their money. I'm not sure why, maybe because of an acquisition of some sort. So 1.3 billion down, by the way, have paid down debt. And they actually increased it. So definitely an acquisition seems like one of the stories to go and dig deeper into. In terms of valuation and other metrics, there were 30 million shares outstanding. Price to earnings for 20% growth year over year and the 30% growth on profit. This is not a bad number at all. I like it. 30%, almost 30, which is what a lot of the larger companies are doing. Price to sales ratio of 4 is very, very good. Margins overall, as I said, in the 20, oh, wow, 25%. That's not what it showed me. 25% gross margins, 14% in margins. That's not what it says over here. Let's go look at the statements again. So quarterly, 1.6 billion. Liability. This is wrong. Let's go to the income statement. Cost of goods is, this is interesting. Yeah, so 25% gross margins and 14% in margins is very, very good, very operationally sound company, but this looks like it's going to go closer to the 28, 30% growth this year. So this was a little unusual. What was the reason? Cost of goods sold is 1 point. Okay. So 4 billion out of this is about 25, 30%. Got it. That was my mistake. Okay. So no red flags on the growth seems okay. Valuation seems okay. And then a beautiful green candle today, nearly up about 18, 20% almost. Wow. That's huge. And if you want to look at why, it's just because of an analyst upgrade. It doesn't seem to be any other big news as to why they've gone up. Let's start from the technicals at a very, very high level. So strong, solid stage 1, stage 2 growth, again, stage 1. They seem to have started to decline, but again, did a good stage 2. and then consolidate a little bit, another stage one, consolidate a little bit, another stage one, consolidate a little bit, stage three, and then stage four decline, consolidated a little bit, beautiful stage one, consolidated stage three, and then stage four, and then a strong stage one revival, and then seemed to have taken for the worst, but now seems to be coming back again. So if you look at it on a monthly basis, this seems to be somewhat of a, I wouldn't call this necessarily a return to growth, but on the very long term, this is a solid company. It's been growing consistently. Not sure if this is a consolidation phase or it's a beginning of an uptrend, but right now it seems like between a consolidation and an up phase for the very long term on the monthly basis. On the weekly basis, oh wow, there's been a bunch of new candles. So look at this candle on a weekly basis. This week of the October 2022 was a solid week. It's got a lot of green candles that it's formed just in terms of the breadth that it's shown. So long-term trend, I would say let's draw a few places where you might have some resistance. That's in the 282 range. And then where it will have some support is likely going to be at least we should expect in the 227 range for the short term. But usually green candles end up making this go a little bit higher. This red candle should have actually gone a little bit lower, but seems to have found support and then reversed beautifully. So it's in a stage one. I'm still going to be cautious. I'm not 100% sure that unless I see the next few candles form, I'm going to watch. This is a very good earnings candle, very strong earnings candle. So power earnings growth is what it's called. On the long term, a beautiful growth. If you look at this over the last few months, it did a terrific job of just going within channel extremely well, and then had a red candle to drop it before earnings. And then now let's look at the daily candle. Look at that. That was beautiful. So the daily candle, so this should have been, as I've said, this should have been something of a bear market down. This is a bear flag. Should have gone lower, but seems to have found very good support at 227. And today's earnings, looking at today's earnings, the earnings were, solid earnings. Reported $492 million in revenue, up about 3% surprise. But that growth is nearly about 20%, 28% year over year, $2.22 in standardized reporting. So that's one of the reasons why analyst earnings, analyst report strong, recommendation strong, and on top of that, they seem to have grown. So I wouldn't call this necessarily in this format, but it seems to have consolidated. This was a bear flag, broke down a little bit, touched the 227 mark, very nice, and then up 44 points today to 272. That's a solid gain. That's a really solid gain. So what would you expect it to happen? Remember, on the monthly basis, the monthly chart, if you can see that out again, on the monthly chart, I'm still not sure this is a beginning of an uptrend, but seemed like a good solid one. On the weekly chart, seems like the 270, 282 will be a resistance for it. So it's got to see where it ends up. But it's most likely going to follow a pattern that's going to be somewhat in this kind of a mode where it should form a bull flag of some sort, either this way, hit to 282, and then come down a little bit from the 282 back to the 260 range, and then try and attempt to move upwards from here. But this is definitely a very, very good stock for you to watch, and should put it on the watch list. Watch how the pattern forms over the next few days, because if you look at the consistent patterns, it's done a little bit of a consolidation, move down. Look at the last green candle, consolidation, move down, takes it out a little bit, and then moves up back again. So it's done that a multiple different times. Look at this beautiful green candle, moved down, touched this base, and then this one went a little bit lower, but look at how nicely it is formed. I like this. I like the stock. I think I'm going to follow this for the next couple of days at least for another week to see what the pattern follows. Thank you very much. Please subscribe to the blog, and I appreciate it, guys.